folks, welcome to another Voxcast transmission. This time we have not quite everyone, but nearly everyone from the recent No Retreat invasion of Gibraltar of the SN Battle Reports tournament. So we're going to talk to you about that and our collective gaming experiences there, do a little tournament report for you.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about this.
Yes.
I can tell that you're especially excited about it.
Very excited.
Very excited.
I met some monkeys.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Did you talk to any of them?
I did, but I was told I wasn't allowed to touch them.
Because they live on the rock, you see.
Yeah, up on the top of the rock.
That's right. They don't really migrate down. I don't think they like it down in
It's
the...
a bit busy for them down there, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's understandable.
Did you see some as well?
I did see some.
Yeah.
They seem to really take a shine to Little Dragon.
Yeah.
They really like it.
But who doesn't, right?
Exactly.
So Little Dragon is the fourth member of Tabletop Tactics, which sadly cannot be here today. So we won't be able to talk about his games. Obviously, I didn't play his games. I don't think you played his games.
No.
I'm pretty sure you didn't. So it wouldn't be fair for us to comment.
No. But can we tell them what he got at least?
Yeah.
We can.
He got player's player.
He got player's player.
Couldn't have gone to a nicer bloke, in my opinion.
No. That's right.
It's always a joy playing Little Dragon.
Yeah, he's very funny to play. Actually, he is actually very funny to play.
It's very good.
Everybody did.
Yeah.
So congratulations to him.
Yeah.
But before we delve into the No Retreat tournament reports, I want to do a massive shout out to Artis Opus. So it's a gorgeous looking case. Artis Opus is a new company. And they've sent me these brushes here. It's a brush set, but I mean, really, this is not just a brush set. So I'm a painter, all-round hobbyist. I've been painting a long time, gaming a long time, and I'm always very funny about my brushes, to be honest. So I sent these about a week ago. Now they've already had, if you're on Instagram, a ton of endorsements. And when I got the box, I was like, wow, I was really rather impressed by it. You open it up. You've got a gorgeous set of brushes in here. They're really, really nice to hold as well. They've obviously paid close attention to, the design of the actual brushes. You get a nice brush sponge in there as well. Now, this is a brand new set of brushes, and they're brand new to the industry. So reached out to me, had a chat, and I've seen all of these massive painters, people such as Andy Wardle, multiple Golden Demon winners, endorsing these brushes and using them. And so, I've now been sent a set, and I will start painting using these brushes. And I have to say, so far, I'm really, really impressed. Now, if you're interested in finding out a little bit more about these brushes, these are really like artisan brushes. This is top quality stuff, What I would do is go to the Artis Opus website. So I'll have a link come up on the screen here, and you can subscribe to their mailing list, because the Kickstarter to get your hands on a set of these brushes actually starts on April 14th. So not long now, but if you sign up to the mailing list, you will get first dibs on getting yourself a set of these gorgeous brushes. So if you're a painter, I would definitely check it out, especially if you're on Instagram as well. Go and check out the endorsements, but check out the websites, and I'm sure you'll be impressed. I certainly am by these brushes. So that's Artis Opus. Good luck to them. Awesome new company, awesome set of brushes, and I look forward to working with these very soon. But now I think we have to address the rock in the room.
You like that one?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
You never laugh at my jokes.
Well, they're all right.
Anyway, the rock in the room, that is Gibraltar, that is SN Battle Report, No Retreat 6, which happened, 2 weeks ago? 3 weeks ago? 3 weeks ago.
God, the time's flying, it's crazy.
I know. It's a tournament report that's coming up next. Right, it is No Retreat report time, and we are starting with the legendary Toga Bone.
Yes.
Who was, in fact, wearing a toga.
Yeah.
I can't get the image out of my
It was
mind.
such a big reveal as well, because when you're staying at No Retreat, you have to walk down these stairs. to get to the gaming area, and I waited a little bit because everyone was having breakfast, and I knew if I waited, most people would already be down there. So I came down in my toga. There was cheering, there was clapping, and then there was his face.
Yeah, I made sure that I had a good view to see the pain.
Murmuring, some, sounds of shock. Now, I don't know if you're not that familiar with the Drukhari.
No.
But the Drukhari dark light technology, it actually, if you look at one firing, it causes retinal damage.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a bit like looking at the sun.
Sure.
Yeah. That was my experience. With you walking downstairs in your toga.
That's very good.
So yeah, thanks for that. So, with no further ado,
that's the most important thing about togas.
What we're going to be doing is Mr. Bone here is going to, first of all, you're going to tell us about your list.
I am.
Why you took it. Now, obviously, it was a 7th edition at the time. 7th edition? Excuse me. It was an index edition codex. Or rather, it didn't even have a codex.
No.
So it was an index army.
Yeah.
So obviously, we do now have a Tau codex, as are. But if you'd like to briefly explain what you took and why you took it, and then we'll go over your games.
Cool, great. So you have to take a mandatory battalion, and then I also took a outrider detachment as well for my fast attack slots. So I had 7 command points. So I had 2 Yuvaras in there as well. It's a shame. I don't know how you're going to run 2 Yuvaras these days and make them as competitive as I just did. But I took 2 Yuvaras.
So you've got the benefit of hindsight now, the post-codex,
But now it's interesting. I'm trying to see if I can figure it. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the list I took there. So I took 2 Yuvaras, both of which have ATS, and then they also had target lock as well. I then took 4 commanders. So these were in the days when you could take 4 commanders. So 2 of them had cyclic ion blasters and the other 2 had fusion. So 4 of each on all of those. They all had marker drones coming in with them as well. Then I took a Fireblade, who was my warlord, and he had the Puretide engram chip. I then had 4 units of 6 Fire Warriors. In there to fulfill my battalion requirements, and then I had 4 units of drones. So 3 of those units were 10 drone squads. So they had 9 gun drones in there and 1 shield drone in each of them. Shield drones, mixing in, this is something I think everyone should still do if they're running drones, is mixing a shield drone in there so you can just tank those extra few hits. For me is worth losing 4 shots. More than actually. The amount of times that I saved an extra 3 drones with Saviour protocols because of it, it's a really handy little trick. So I do suggest looking into that. And I had 1 more unit of drones which had 4 marker drones in there and 1 shield drone again. So in total it worked out I was only running about 13 marker drones. Reason for this is I didn't need marker light support in this list at all. There were times where it would have helped because obviously with the big gun on the Yuvaras there, it's still going to be hitting on 4s. I think 1 game I may have got a full complement of marker lights on there because I still had that stratagem which gave you the D3.
From the index, right?
Chapter
approved.
Chapter approved.
Yeah.
But most of the time I was just looking to be re-rolling 1s with those, and that seemed to be enough. Re-rolling 1 is really important for commanders, especially if you're running cyclic ion blasters, because when you get that 1, that's a mortal wound.
Right.
So that was the list. I won 3 games.
Very nice.
Out of 5, and the other 2 were really hard fought. So I'll kind of go into more detail in what that was about. But I was really happy with that, how it performed. Actually, it was good.
It was 2,000 points on the nose.
It was bang on 2,000 points. Yeah.
It's always nice. That's a feeling which is good.
Yeah.
It's when you know it's for me. I can't go to a tournament with an underpointed list. I find it very stressful.
It's a list of power.
Okay, so that was your list. So you've already revealed you did win 3 out of your 5 games. But let's delve into that in a little bit more detail because I'm sure some of you will be interested in exactly what he fought, the variety of players, etc. So that's coming up next. So it's game time for you, Mr. Bone.
It sure is.
So what was your first game?
So I played a fellow called Oscar. Hello, Oscar. I feel kind of bad for him because he was the only person I played wearing a toga the entire time.
It's massively off-putting.
Obviously I won that game through psychological warfare.
Yeah,
Mainly because he was doing this the entire time.
Exactly.
He was trying to play. He was just like, you know.
Yeah. And it was
What did I
cold.
roll? Oh, all ones.
Yeah.
How about that?
And it was cold as well. It was really cold there. So
It was cold in Gibraltar. It really was.
Surprisingly
really
so.
cold. So that added obviously to the psychological warfare of me just wearing a toga. So in this game, just move on. In this game,
Please do.
he brought his custodes. Was it Custodes?
Custodies.
It's Custodes.
Yeah.
I get it
I was
wrong.
berated and slated for saying
Yeah, I know.
custodes,
Yeah.
even though actually the way it's written it could be pronounced
Yeah,
that way.
either
But
way.
Apparently the commentary have said it is custodes. So
Custodes.
I
And
think
to
To
it's
be
custodes.
fair to them, GW the designers themselves in their adverts were saying it, and I'm practicing to keep saying it right.
Custodes.
Trying.
Yeah.
Custodes.
Custodies.
It's custodes.
Custodes, very good. So my first game, he brought Custodes, a beautifully painted army, you know, and Custodes are strong, guys. They're really strong. He had I think 3 shield captains in there as well.
There were 2 of them on bikes.
There were
weren't
2 of
there?
them on bikes, 1 on foot. He had pretty much all jet bikes, and then he had some infantry running around as well. The problem, that probably was his worst matchup that he had, because he actually went on, he finished ahead of me. I think he finished 10th or 11th or 9th, somewhere in that bracket.
Oh yeah? Okay.
Yeah,
was
so
at the top.
he finished ahead of me. Look, when your army, when I went first, I was able to get rid of all of his shooting, essentially. So all of his bolters and everything. So my drones were effectively protected. And with my Yavaras, what I was doing is I would deep strike 3 of my commanders, but I'd leave 1 commander back. And then I would use the Montcar special rule, so I could advance and shoot them. And the rule says you can advance and shoot as if you haven't moved.
Right.
Now the Yavara already has an 18-inch move. Every game that we played at No Retreat was Dawn of War. So I was in range.
Fixed deployment.
It's fixed deployment.
Yeah.
So that's why I took them for this particular, because I was always in range with my flamer. So that, with the support of my commanders, I took out all of his guns, and he really he had a few guns left, but really he just had to charge me. And when I've got both of the Yavaras, I just stood them next to each other, Overwatch, and then for the greater good as well. It was just a really difficult one for him to win. He's got 3-ups everywhere, but the thing is, my flamers are flat 3 damage.
Yeah, so every failed 3-up is a sting. And a half,
A real sting. Well, two failed flamers is 1 bite gone, and for his infantry, 1 is 1 gone.
Yeah.
So and then using rerolls to make sure you're getting all the extra hits. And the flamers are only better now, by the way, but they still were very nasty then. So I mean I don't think we kind of conceded before I tabled him. I think it was turn 2 or 3.
Right.
So that was max points victory. So it was good.
Cool.
It was a good one. The next one I played was against Rostislav, who is probably watching this.
The boss.
He's a big supporter of ours.
Oscar is a boss too.
Yeah,
actually. It's my
yeah,
first time
Oscar-
meeting Oscar.
Yeah, Oscar's look. The thing is, everyone. I'll preface this. Everyone I met there was great.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Had such a good time. I'll go off on a slight tangent here. SN does really, really good work on their tournaments.
Yeah.
100%. It's very fun. Everyone there's always in good humour, and it's the way that they've built it around. It's not. You want to go there and have good games. You don't really care if you win or lose. It's great if you win, obviously, but the way they build it, it's more about the hobby. I mean, the whole thing is may the hobby win.
Gaming retreat.
Yeah, and the community aspects of I think we've talked about this in previous ones, but when you go, you straight away on a kind of group message, so you're kind of chatting away.
Yeah, so you get to know everyone.
You're getting to know people
before you've even
beforehand.
arrived.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Which is really cool.
It's really fun. And Gibraltar's such an interesting place as well. So, so I was playing Rostislav. I hope I'm saying that right, mate. Forgive
Rostislav,
me. Yeah, I'm fairly certain I was. I suddenly had that moment to go, uh-oh. So he brought Eldar. Well, his Eldar, which I told him he's painted to look like himself.
That's right, yeah. The Autark looks like
Autark
him.
exactly looks like him. Which he won a painting competition.
Yeah,
He won a
What
painting
his
competition.
painting is
really lovely.
beautiful.
Incredible.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's, you know...
And it's traditional, old school GW.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm sure, like, if you're like myself, when we first started collecting, when we were like 11 or 12, and you'd look at all like the White Dwarf and be like, oh wow, it's like it all looks like that.
It's classic heavy metal.
Second edition
It's
The
style.
only thing he's missing is the Goblin Green basing.
Yeah, that's it. He doesn't have that. But other than that, it's all the same.
Very
But
good.
so I played. I mean, that was Elder's tough for anyone really, but it is. He didn't have like he had a squad of Reapers in there, for example.
Yeah.
And he was still using like scat bikes and all that sort of stuff. So it was.
It's Sam Line who's running, or
Sam
same hand.
Yeah.
You know.
So it was still because you guys played as well, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was still really it was still a good game, but a tough matchup for me really. And then it was quite intense. And then when my alpha, because I did go second, but I managed to deploy a lot of my drones out of line of sight and everything. So my white eyes were still fully operational. I had my commanders coming in, and I positioned perfectly. I thought if it had paid off with my alpha strike, or it would have been a very different game. And I whiffed. I whiffed so badly. It was just one of those games like so I didn't kill enough. And then he kind of just ran away with it.
Yeah.
But he's also a very good player.
Yes, he is.
So when you kind of have a turn like that, and you're playing against an experienced player, and I think one of the problems with the list that I took is you try and make it as survivable as possible, and even with all those drones, it just wasn't. And you've got so many eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
I tend to seem to like running lists like this for some reason. If your strike fails, and then you're playing against someone who's a good player, your list falls apart.
Yeah.
List falls apart.
Problem is as well, is because obviously I played him as well, so I'm quite familiar with his list. His list almost had, in some ways, the perfect counter to you.
Yeah.
Because whilst we don't see the scatter bikes that often anymore in competitive Eldar lists, if you're going to run them, you would run them as Sam Hine, and that's exactly what he was doing. And that rate of fire actually is perfect at removing your screening drones.
Yeah.
It's made for it,
Yeah.
and then so he could just remove all of the drones relatively easily, and then open up with his heavier weapons to take out your white tides.
Which is
just suspect is what happened.
It happened, yeah.
That's what happened.
And then he had shining spears in there as well. We're rocking a 3-up invulnerable, and like from one white-eyed, one commander, I think I killed 2. He just rolling like a boss.
So to clarify how that happens, they come with a 4-up invuln,
Yeah.
and you can cast protect on them
to
give them a +1 to that.
So that way, So I mean, I rolled poorly and he rolled well, and so the rest was history. So I conceded. I think at that point
Before you got tabled.
Before I got tabled. Well, we actually ran it. That game was a very strategic. I mean, as strategic as I can be with a list like mine. It's not quite a one-trick pony. There are different things that you can do with it, but we played it really strategically, and it's all about where you place your deployment and how you move and the amount of targets that you can sort out. So we were both really feeling each other out. So I think we only got 3 rounds in until we ran out of time, essentially. So that was again. So then at that point I was 1 win, 1 loss, and then in the evening I played Phil, who brought the Death Corpse of Krieg.
Absolute mega boss.
Yeah.
This army was just unbelievably beautiful.
Really
cool, and such a nice guy. Really good
and
guy.
he had units in there which you just can't even buy anymore, and it was fun to play. So we were playing the Relic. So although I didn't have a toga wearing ethereal in my lists, I did bring him as a mascot, so I kind of place him anywhere so he could watch over the battle. So we actually used him as the Relic in this game.
Oh, great idea.
It was a great idea. It was really cool. So this game went right down to the wire. In fact, I'm fairly certain we were the last table playing.
Yeah, you were.
Yeah,
That's right.
And everyone was
absolutely.
like, okay, the taxis are coming, we're going out to dinner. And I was like, can everyone just go away, please? This is very intense. Like, normally I'm quite happy-go-lucky, but this game I was playing to win.
Yeah.
I was playing, it was getting very serious, but, it was so intense. And I came down right to the last, I think it did go to round 6.
Yeah, it's long.
And then we'd run out of time, and because I didn't have much infantry, so I couldn't actually hold the relic, like pick it up and move with it. All of my infantry was dead by this stage. But if I could clear his units out around it, and then have a unit within the 3, I could still hold it, because it was no longer contested.
Yeah.
And literally managed to do that with the last dice roll of the game.
Stress level.
Stress level. Yeah. It was next level. I had to charge one of my commanders into another squad of his. Before that, I had to make sure we'd wiped out everyone around it. So it was like this last roll, and I managed to do it. So I stole victory literally in the last roll of the game. But it was just a great game. Really, really fun. So that was day 1.
Very nice.
That was day 1, and then we all went out to dinner.
Which is very nice.
Which is also very nice.
It was.
Okay, so that's day 1. Let's cover your exploits on the battlefield of day 2. That's coming up next. Day 2. What happened?
What happened? Well, we had breakfast.
Good.
No, so day 2 was good. We had our morning meeting. We had a few people who didn't quite make the meeting.
Saturday
There's a
night
slight
had been quite
delay.
full for some people.
There was a slight delay on the game starting. I was there.
We were a bit
We were all
tender.
It was a
fine.
little. It was a little.
was a
Yeah.
bit tender.
It was a little bit tender.
I was a bit tender.
It was good though. We had a good time.
I was fine.
If you
I had no
guys get to
problem
go,
with
yeah. But yeah, so I played Joe and his 1,000 Suns next.
Yes.
Great list, and he's a brilliant painter. He works with Siege.
Yeah.
So he does really, really good stuff, and he's also, he's an alright bloke, I guess. But look, essentially, that game came down to, because he had Magnus in there, he had a Zanger Bomb, and then he had like Rubrix Marines, and he also had Scarab Terminators and Arrowmen, right? So he needed to get close to me, which is not actually what you want to do against my army. However, it kind of wouldn't have mattered, because he'd get so close, he was going to charge in his Zanger Bomb and Magnus. I'd be completely turned up. Sure, I can fly away, but then I've got all the shots, and it would have been done. Game over, right? So it came down to who got first turn. Now he got first turn, but he may as well not have, because he whiffed so badly. I felt so sorry for him, because his Zanger Bomb didn't get into combat. So it's 9 inches away. He failed the charge, and then he had that. I think it's a psychic power which allows him to re-roll one of the dice, and he has a command point as well.
Yeah,
that's right. So you can kind of re-roll both of the dice individually, if that makes sense. And he failed it even by doing that. And so we kind of just went cool. So
what do you do?
So one of my white toads finished off Magnus, because I rolled incredibly well with my flamer, so melted him to death. The other one,
and he's got no reroll ones on his save anymore.
No. Then my other one finished off the Zanger Bomb with the help of some Fire Warriors, and then my commanders opened up on the Terminators. And look, he played really well. He played he played the survival game, but unfortunately he just couldn't get away, because my army is quite fast. He did manage to kill both of my white-eyes though, and there was a point where he did one, and actually it could have swung the other way, but my commanders were very well placed, and so I was able to kind of mop them up. And that's where the cyclic iron blasters became really effective.
Yeah.
So that was a good game. It was one of those games where you kind of go. It kind of came down to dice. It really came. We both had that kind of list where, even though it kind of went down to who went first, unless of course you completely whiff, which is what happens, right? So it was still a really fun game though. We had a really good time. So at this stage I was on 3 wins and 1 loss. So this is the best I've ever done in a tournament right now.
You're pretty far up the tables at this point.
I was pretty far up. So then my last game I played Ian Jewel.
Yeah.
Who brought Night Lords.
Yes.
It was a pretty interesting. It was a very nasty list actually. essentially he just delved into Forge World and brought everything that you could bring. So he had Leviathans in there, Sicarans, that other Dreadnought which gives a 4 invulnerable save as a buff.
As a buff?
Yeah, with some psychic shenanigans. He had all this sort of stuff going on.
Okay.
Everything also had 5 up invulnerable saves as well. I did go first, but he made all of his 5 up invulnerable saves on everything. I never seen it. It was like playing you.
No one likes that.
Lucky he was an absolute gent. So it was fine. And then the game actually to and froed. So because when his Leviathan didn't die and it had that hideous gun which is like -5 flat 5 damage or whatever it is, he just goes, okay, then when there's a Yavara, just exploded.
I think it's called the Grav Flux Bombard
yeah,
or something.
Something crazy. Yeah. So yeah, it was one of those games. It was really fun though. He was great. And then like I said, to and froed a bit. The thing is though, I did manage to keep my drones alive for a long time, and it made a huge difference. So my commanders actually did a lot of the business.
Yeah.
I went for a Hail Mary move and when we were everyone was running out of time. If I had pulled it off, I probably would have won, I think.
Interesting.
But
sometimes you have to take that risk.
Well, because I kind of went. Look, I can play this safe, and I might win, but I probably won't. Whereas if I do this and I go for a Hail Mary and this pays off, I've won the game. So I kind of split my fire with one of my fusion commanders on his 2 remaining dreadnoughts.
Right.
Statistically, I was in melter range with one of them as well, and the other one only had like 2 wounds left.
Right. So I'm trying to get the two birds.
So if I'd popped them, now it was risky. A lot of people are probably going, "Why would you do that?" Because I mean,
what if one's severely damaged?
Yeah, you've got down to that last little bit.
Exactly. So you know, victory. What is it? Favours the bold, or whatever it is. Is that the saying?
Yeah, fortune favours.
Fortune favours the bold, but I was going for victory.
Yeah. He who dares wins.
Yeah, all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So it didn't pay off, and then I got, I essentially got tabled after that. But it was a really good game. So I mean, I finished up with 3 wins. 3 wins to 2 losses. I was happy with that though, because I mean I played all Codex armies. I didn't play anyone with an index, so it's
good
always
good
variety as well. So it did hold its own, which was good. Yeah. I finished 16th out of 52, I think.
42.
42.
Yes.
42.
Yeah. So I just finished in the top third.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Excellent result.
Yeah, it was really good. Yeah, I was very, very happy with it. So, it's interesting now because that list is illegal. We can't do anything like it anymore. Which is great. I loved that when the Codex came out and I went, oh good, I've got to buy all these new models now. But yeah, I think, White Tides are immense, and now they're even better with the Codex, to be honest. So I'm not sure running 2 of them is a great idea, because now that drones are more expensive, they don't really have the support anymore, and because you can't run commanders the way you used to. Sure, we were talking about it. You could maybe replace them with ghost kills or something like that, but still, you don't quite. I've done the numbers. You don't quite get an effective list from it anymore. I think running 2 of them isn't great, but I think running 1 of them, if anything, is a distraction kind of effects. We were talking about this. Is a really good idea.
Yeah. As long as you've got lots of threat elsewhere.
Yeah. Because if you don't deal with it, it ruins your day. But if you do deal with it, when it's got drone support, it takes a lot to actually kill one. It takes a lot, especially, with the 5-up invuln that they get built in, or 4-up if you're within 12. So, but as for the list itself, I mean, drones are an interesting one now. They've all gone up in price, I think, pretty much except for shield drones. Even shield drones have gone up, forgive me.
Right.
So, so I hope you enjoy that list, and we can all dream about a time that was.
So that was your No Retreat experience.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Met some monkeys, like I said.
That's it.
Ate some good food.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good. I had a really good time. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So that was Mr. Bone. Now seems appropriate to hand over to Mr. Stig, and his No Retreat experience is coming up next. It's Mechanicum time with Stig and his Stiggies.
Stidgies.
Stiggies. Stiggies.
Stidgies.
Steggles
Stiggles
is a
eggs.
brand of chicken that you can get in Australia.
Really?
Is it?
Yeah, Steggles chicken.
Okay, good. Fantastic.
Yeah,
That's good.
I just thought, you know, while we're chucking names around.
Wow.
So should we go over your list?
Yeah, let's move on quickly. Wow. Anyway,
You need a firmware update.
yeah, you need something. So yes, I'm all off put now. I used the Stidgies 8 Forge World, funnily enough, which I love so dearly. I had the battalion that you need to have in the SN format, and then I had a spearhead. In my battalion, I had a couple of engine seers, just obviously the cheapest HQ that you can go with AdMech, but just great for repairing stuff and keeping things alive. I then had 2 10-man Ranger units. They are completely stock, so all galvanic rifles and just 1 enhanced data tether. That's the thing for allowing you to reroll morale tests, but also does work with stratagems if you choose to do it. You wouldn't, but you can do. Yeah. And then a 10-man Vanguard unit. Again, exactly the same. So just the enhanced data tether, just the radium carbines were out. So they were my 3 units of troops, which, as you can probably imagine, are there for screening largely. The reason I kept the 1 unit of Vanguard is because most of the time with deployment, I was able to position them in the centre, and sometimes there's a bit of an overlap on my screening, so Rangers to screen and then the Vanguard just in front. Gives me that kind of little space for stopping people being able to consolidate, but also if they are the first ones that do get charged, then that's then 30 shots for Overwatch. So it gives you a good percentage chance of getting something out of Overwatch, which is kind of like the intention behind that. The other thing that was so 2 things that were in the battalion were 1 unit of 5 dragoons.
Oh.
Hello. That's cheeky.
Yeah, 5 dragoons.
And why is that good with Stidgies?
Well, Stidgies, their unique stratagem allows you in the deployment before, after you've determined who's going first, but before you've actually kind of taken the first move, you can deploy them anywhere you like as long as they are 9 inches away, and then they can move. Doesn't count as movement. They've been hiding.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So
doesn't have to be on dragoons, though.
No, it can be on any unit, which brings me to the other last unit that was in that battalion.
No, what was that?
4 punchy bots.
1950s.
Yeah.
Now the other interesting thing,
really.
the other interesting about clandestine infiltration, the stratagem, is that it's not happening in a game turn.
Right.
So that means that you can do it as many times as you want.
Yeah.
So if I'd wanted to, I could have used them on both of these distraction carnifexes.
Right.
But well, yeah, it's an interesting way of doing things. You can kind of goad some people into doing some things, is the theory behind it. So it's an interesting option to have. Combining this with my warlord, who was a Dominus that sat in my spearhead, and his warlord trait allowed him to, any time that either player used a stratagem, you get to roll a d6, and on a 6 you get a command point back.
Right.
It means that you can be quite bold with using your command points, because you've got a decent chance of getting them back. And I'll say now that although I had 7 command points in the list, I on average was using about 8 or 9 across each game.
Yeah.
Because between 2 players, you're rolling a lot, and those 6s turn up occasionally, and you're getting plenty of use out of them. So, like I say, the Dominus sat in the spearhead. He was the HQ requirement for the spearhead. He was just completely bare bones. So Volkite Blaster, as cheap as you like. And then the 3 heavy support in his spearhead, he had 2 Dune Crawlers with neutron lasers and twin heavy stubblers each. and then just one little unit of 4 Dakabots.
Oh, just one little unit.
Only 4. Only 4. So you know, a little bit of castling going on as the spearhead.
Smidgen.
Just smidgen. 2,000 points, bang on the nose.
Ah,
So
useful.
Yeah.
and I say 7 command points, but in reality, with that warlord trait, you're looking at 8 or 9 generally, is what I found. So you know, it gave you some good options to be able to work with.
Yeah, pretty balanced, really.
That was the intention.
Yeah.
A lot of AdMech lists out there are just all gunline.
Yeah,
And-
Dakabots for days.
Yeah, and the reality of this kind of, you know, Dawn of War is the requirement, as we've said at SNM. So you're going to get charged at some point.
Yeah.
And if you Dakabots for days, you're going to get locked up. You know?
Exactly, yeah.
Especially if they're in protected protocol and not allowed to move, so they can't even fall back anyway.
Yeah.
You know, you've got some concerns. So, you know, I knew that the thought was to try and build a pretty balanced list, hopefully, and give me some options at, you know, all stages of the board as well as all stages of the game was the intention. So yeah. You know, that was my first time trying to build a competitive list as well, a properly, you know, competitive list. So I thought it was okay. We'll come up to some things I'm sure that I would have done differently, but that's later on.
Well, perfect. Perhaps then now is the time where you give us the context. Are you ready to go over your games?
Yeah.
All right, that's coming up next. So, the Stygies take to the fields of battle. Day 1 of no retreat. Who was your first opponent?
Well, this is an interesting thing because these games were the first time I'd ever played 40k without a camera in my face.
Oh yes, that's right.
And
Yeah,
this
that's
is,
good. Yeah,
so I
I
should
hadn't
just kind of
considered that.
acknowledge this. So, and I'd realised, you know, as I'm on the plane, which is a great time to realise this, that I'd used this list once. And and I'd also I'd only ever played 7 games of AdMech.
Yeah.
And I was suddenly realising, great, so I'm now on a plane to a tournament, and good, this will be good. And my first opponent was a guy called Tristan. Now, probably many people out there are going to know who Tristan is because he's an absolute tournament regular.
Yeah, and he's a good player.
An unbelievably nice guy.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't have... Genuinely, despite the fact that I'll talk about the game in a minute, I couldn't have asked for a nicer first person to play against. He was amazing and really made it a really good first tournament experience.
He is very
for me.
enjoyable to play, yeah.
And he had, he's a great player, and he had a very interesting Alpha Legion list.
Alpha Legion?
Alpha Legion?
Are we talking about the same Tristan as Black Legion?
Black Legion. Sorry, forgive me.
But yeah,
Chaos gets confusing for me.
Well, it's because so many Chaos players are running Alpha Legion.
Yeah,
That's
so,
right. But he had a Black Legion.
He had a Black Legion list. Now, there was Abandon in there.
That's right.
There were 9 Obliterators in there.
That's right.
There were 3 3 Hell Brutes in there.
Yep. Between las cannons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a bunch of Chaos Space Marines, all with las cannons as well.
Yeah, 5 units of them.
Yeah.
I remember, I've played it as well.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah. A Sorcerer with a jump pack.
Yep.
So he was like right up the field the whole time.
Yep.
And a Chaos Lord, I think, were also with a jump pack or something that meant he was also right up the field most of the time as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a good list for me to play against first thing.
Yeah.
We had it was so the board, you know, you've probably seen from all the photos online, but the SN boards are amazing. Like the scenery and terrain is just fantastic. And obviously they randomly determine which table you're going to be on, and of literally all the tables that were there, I mean, I can't even think, how is it, 20 tables? 21 tables.
Yeah,
must
21
be.
tables. Yeah.
21 tables. It was probably my 21st choice of which board to have because I had virtually no line of sight of anything for it, which was it looked amazing, but it was not really in my favour.
Shut your castle down.
It was interesting. So what I did with it was I knew obviously Obliterators and Abandon and all those guys were starting off the board turn 1. I knew that I had to deal with his Hellbrutes because they were his heavy options that I could do in turn 1. I did win the roll-off and went first.
Nice.
But I also, I was just knowing that, well, this is going to happen. The Obliterators are going to drop in a place that I can't really shoot them that much. So it's going to be something that I'm going to have to deal with. So I need to kind of think about that. So I did use Clandestine Infiltration on my punchy bots.
Right.
And I dropped them in 9 inches away from one of the Hellbrutes. In fact, 2 of the Hellbrutes that were positioned real close. Yeah. I managed with my shooting, with the only line of sight that I did have, to take out one of the other Hellbrute, and damage one of the pair that I was looking at, and then was able to charge in, kill the damaged one, and pretty much take the last one down to very very few wounds with punchy bots. So that had worked. I was pretty happy with that. But it was about to be his turn, and knew that things were going to get very bad for me very, very quickly. I'd held back my Dragoons as a bit of a kind of counter charge, was the intention, to see what I could do with that. And lo and behold, 9 Obliterators surrounding Abaddon with the Sorcerer. And
so
all
they're
the
re-rolling all of their failed hits.
Yeah. Appeared in relatively close range, and they did some nasty work. They got rid of a lot of my screening first of all. They took out one of the Dune Crawlers first of all, and then when it came back round, I was able to get my counter charge off with the Dragoons. I got rid of 1 squad of them, and I took 1 guy out from the other 2 squads. I was having to split to try and get, because of the way it positioned and the way the board was, it really wasn't helping me. So it was a kind of awkward one. I used the Conqueror Protocol stratagem, which if for non-AdMech players out there, the Dragoons have a little kind of antenna thing on the back of them, which when you use this stratagem, it allows them to add 2 to their hit rolls. So they have 3 attacks each, but on hits of 4, on hits of they hit on 4s, but on rolls of 6, they actually become 3 attacks, 3 hits rather than 1. Which is...
Or when you're adding 2 to your roll.
And then you're adding 2 to your roll. So you're hitting on 2s, and 4 ups
become
3.
Yeah, it's mathematics.
And,
that's basic mathematics.
And there's 5 of them.
That's too many.
And there's 5
That's
of them.
too many.
It's a lot, isn't it? Yeah.
That's too many, Stig, you cheater.
So you're getting a lot of hits. And they're strength 8. They're only -1 AP, but they are 2 damage. So you're forcing a lot of saves to be done. Hence the reason I could take out so many. If I'd got a little bit more better luck, then the Obliterators would have gone, but they didn't. And then
Blitz are 2 up save base as well, so he's still
with
getting
that,
3 up saves.
Yeah, exactly. So he's getting loads of options. I mean, you're forcing to make a lot of saves, but and lo and behold, of course, they were able to make that difference. Abandon did absolute work on the Dragoons.
He's a monster.
And
he's a monster.
Yeah. He's disgusting.
You War Master.
Yeah.
I hate him.
I really like
it should be said that Tristan's Abandon model is amazing. It's using the 30k Horus as part of the conversion. It's really nice, and he's a great painter, so it's beautiful. So it was a pleasure to be destroyed by him.
It's always nice, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then they look nice while they're tearing my units apart.
Exactly. Yeah, and what happens next? The leftover Obliterators, the ones that hadn't disappeared, then basically roll disgustingly on their shoot options. So they're the ones where you roll for adding to their strength, and I think he got a 6, so that was then strength 9.
Yeah.
He then rolled a 6 again, which I think that was -3 AP, and then he rolled a 6 again.
No.
So
no, he didn't. Come on now.
The leftover unit just
just gone,
absolutely destroyed my 4 Dakabots in one go.
That's
It was absolutely brutal.
Strength 9 -3 damage.
That's thank you for playing right there.
Yeah.
Rolling hits.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I was like,
Did you have a good time?
and it was just a case of like, okay, so that's happened. Let's see how we can try and still scrape some points together. It was still a great game. We still had great fun. I had one of the most enjoyable combats ever with a unit of rangers and an alpha making 4 6-up saves against a Chaos Lord that was trying to cut him down.
That's
Like,
awesome.
that's just ridiculous, which was just great fun. And a Dominus managing to take that alpha out, that Chaos Lord out in the end, which was great. And then of course I got tabled. So it was a great first game. I'd managed to take they do the thing where you get points for everything you kill.
Yeah.
So I'd managed to take quite a lot of points out of it from that, but it was just great fun. And like I say, Tristan's a great bloke and a really good player, so it was really cool to have a first game with that.
So you took a fair few logistical points, which is awesome.
Took quite a lot of logistical
I don't know if we
points.
mentioned it as well, but of those 5 tactical squads, Chaos Marine units, every single one had a las cannon as well. So he was packing quite a bit of firepower. Now, it's not the nastiest Black Legion list in the world, actually. There was no cultist bomb in there, and unfortunately, it's been a long time since we've actually seen actual Chaos Space Marines on the tabletop as opposed to cultists. But
the thing was that it worked really well for him because in the Maelstrom
yeah.
element of the game, he kept getting Maelstrom that was right in his lines. So of course he's just collecting all of those with his Chaos Space
it's the
Marines.
no retreat boards as well.
Yeah.
They're full of ruins, and actually when you're parking, the Chaos Marine units aren't really overpointed. It's just cultists do so much more because they're probably, the combination of stratagems that you can use and the points that they cost, makes them really points effective. But the Chaos Space Marines themselves, when you're parking them in ruins and you've almost got guaranteed ruins on every board, you are rocking a 2-up save.
Yeah,
which is wild.
It's another 5 las cannons coming at you, plus you've got the 3 units for Blitz and Abaddon, and then the 3 Hellbrutes as well. So the list was actually very balanced, and if played well, could deliver the goods.
And he knows how to use it.
Yeah, so, that's the key thing.
He's a good player.
Yeah, so you can put a lesser list in a good player's hands, and it will still perform really well, etc., etc. So that was game 1.
That was game 1. A loss, but a great fun loss.
Very nice.
Yeah, I have to say.
So let's go on to game 2.
Yeah, and I got to play Oscar.
Oh, so you played Oscar in the next game.
I played Oscar as well. And you know how we were saying...
you forced that, really.
That's my fault. I don't even feel bad.
And you know how we said that Oscar's list was kind of perfect for you?
Yeah.
It's kind of perfectly wrong for me.
That's a bad matchup. That's a bad matchup.
And it's kind of... and it's kind of one of those things that when you know the army, because obviously I'm building my Custodes army, so I knew how bad a matchup it was.
Yeah.
I was well and truly aware of how difficult this one was going to be for me, and it was an interesting game. So I don't know quite how what we said with Oscar's list. So it had nine Dawn Eagles, 3 squads of 3. 2 shield captains on Dawn Eagles, and then a shield captain back. He also then had
called Dawn Eagles.
Yeah,
That's very cool.
Yeah,
Isn't it? I just
they're
call them
cool.
bikes.
That's very cool.
Yeah,
I'm going to start calling them Dawn Eagles. Obviously,
they're cool.
Yeah.
And then he had these 3 units of troops, and then he had one of the Vexless Praetors, which is the banner guy, which it was really kind of working in. So this was a really interesting game. Now I should say with Tristan's game, I think it was either 10-4, 10-5. I think it was 10-5. I was pretty surprised I managed to push it that long, but it did last pretty well. And the first few turns were against Oscar were I really backlined it, and I kept both the Dragoons and the Punchy Bots as virtually screening as being a kind of unit that I could just cover off and stop his. Knowing his bikes would have been able to drop into places, I had to really be careful with screening and make it impossible for them to kind of fly in and drop there. So it was really cagey first couple of turns. As he was, there was a huge, great piece of line of sight blocking, right in the centre of the table. So he's kind of working his way round, trying to work out where he's going to be able to charge me, and anything that's coming around these kind of areas was just getting all the firepower from the Admech were coming into them. And then it worked out just so much that actually he couldn't quite make the charge, but he did put in, he had a unit of Dawn Eagles and one of the Shield Captains backing them up close enough that I could countercharge them with my Dragoons.
Ooh. So you got that off?
I got that off.
Very nice.
And I wiped both units. I did
big.
Disgusting amounts of hits on the Shield Captain. It was one of those that I knew what's happening next. He's about to drop the stratagem and switch his Warlord over to something else. But I didn't care. I just wanted to destroy him. And it was something like 35 saving throws he had to make. It was horrible.
Yes.
It was a properly disgusting one. It was properly nasty.
Yeah.
So I was really happy with that. And then, as kind of expect, it got to the point where he'd then be able to get his other Dawn Eagles around, and I whiffed with my punchy bots.
Right.
We're in a fight with them, which then did allow him to get into the Dakka bots, because I was using the punchy bots as the shielding for the Dakka bots to kind of protect them. But because of the way that he was able to get both units in, he could then manage to kind of make the difference against them. And at that point, those Dakka bots were in protector protocol, so firing heavy 6 shots, but not being able to move. So
he shut you down.
It's shut down at that point.
He's put a muzzle on you. That's
yeah,
it.
exactly. I think this was turn 4. Again, it may have gone on as far as turn 5. I think it was turn 4.
I think. Do you know what? I remember that. I'm fairly certain it was turn 4.
Yeah,
because we had this conversation.
And then did you call it at turn 4?
No, I kept playing because again it was one of those that he was collecting Maelstrom points from all of the ones that were right next to him, and I was getting all the Maelstrom cards for his end. But I was thinking I knew I could still do some damage, and I just wanted to take as many logistical points as possible. Yeah. Knowing that I was coming out of this game with a second loss, I needed to take as many points as possible. So I just kept rolling and until the end. I think it did table in the end, but it was I took. I've got it written down somewhere, but I took I think nearly over 1,000 points out of logistical points out of it, which I was pretty happy with, all things considered, because I knew it was the worst possible match for me. So it was a difficult one, but it was again a great game, and Oscar's a fantastic bloke.
Yeah. Okay, so that was game 2.
Yeah.
Then the third and final game.
Noticed that.
Yeah.
What
was the final game on day 1?
Final game on day 1, which is the Relic, which we've just described about.
Did you have a toga wearing ethereal?
I didn't have a toga wearing ethereal.
That's a shame.
But I did wear. I did play against an absolute legend.
We didn't play.
Oh, Henny's amazing. Yeah.
I played against Henny. Henrik is an amazing guy that you can't spend more than 2 minutes without getting chocolate given to you and forced, and he's such a nice guy. He just absolutely loves 40k and just loves playing. Now the interesting thing with this was that we'd had a bit of a fun game the night before.
Yeah.
So we'd literally just played the night before until stupid o'clock in the morning. So he knew what I listed.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh.
You gave away your hand.
Yeah. This is perhaps not the best idea. And we had the Relic. And his Dark Angels list had an awful lot of different troops options.
Yes.
So it was very heavy infantry options. So lots of things that would have been perfect for the Relic. And I didn't have that much. As we said, I've just got 3 essentially screening units.
Yeah, he had deep striking Deathwing Terminators as well.
He had Deathwing Terminators, he had Ravenwing in there. Yeah. He had, I can't remember the name of the Dreadnought that he had, but it's the one that's got the special autocannons that's just Daedalus.
I think it's the, I think it might be the Radio.
radio.
I believe so.
A Forge World dreadnought
Yes.
that fires
It's
everything.
like, yeah, it's just, yeah.
Yeah, and a couple of Predators in there, las cannon Predators. So he had some teeth, but like I say, he very much had all of the troop options, which were going to make it difficult for me. The Relic being, it was a great board. We were on this kind of desert board, and there's this little kind of village in the centre, and that's the right spot for the Relic to be sitting there. And there's a little crossroads, so it was proper kill box territory. So with this one, I set my kind of castle with my Dakar bots essentially aiming into this little kill box, with my dune crawlers to be in position to be able to get some of the sides. Side stuff. I think I've got some photos of this. There may be photos you're seeing right now. We'll see. And maybe. And
the magic of cinema, ladies and gentlemen.
I put my dragoons off to one side because there was a good amount of space, but I also, having played him the night before, I kind of thought he was going to drop his Terminators in there and try and work around the sides, so I kind of had a bit of a counterfoil with that. And then I used clandestine infiltration, and I popped the punchy bots right in the centre of the town square.
Right.
So whilst they couldn't hold the Relic, they were out of line of sight for his big guns. So it was only his infantry that could get in there, and just positioned so come and take it was the intention.
It was a bit of a deterrent.
Yeah, it was the come and try and take them on. Here it was. And I say with the Dakar bots just outside as well, it was an absolute kill box in there. It really, he had Hellblasters in there as well, if I remember correctly. He had Reavers that can ignore this terrain and stuff and go all over the place. He had some of the aggressors as well with the heavy bolters, so lots and lots of firepower. But the repulsor grids, doing their magic and doing that kind of thing. The combination of I managed to get, lo and behold, he did drop his Terminators down where my Dragoons were. I took them out. He whiffed the charge, unfortunately for him. So I was able to take them out with the Dragoons, then moved up, took out the Raven Wing, big squad of Black Knights. I think it was Black Knights, so it might be not standard bikes. Was able to take them out, and his Warlord, unfortunately for him, was a Sorcerer on a bike. So he was with the Raven Wing. So I was able to take out Warlord as well, and then just carry on around the side and take out more stuff. So the Dragoons did absolute work in this game. They were unbelievable, and I was lucky with my Warlord trait, so I was getting more points. So once a turn, I'm dropping this stratagem, and they're just destroying things. All the while, whilst anything that was trying to come in to try and get near the Relic was just getting either mowed down by the Dakar bots, or they were getting punched in the face by 10-foot tall robots. It happens. So it got right down to the very end. He managed a brilliant move, but he only got it right at the very end to get actually one of his Predators in to block line of sight, whilst he would try to get a couple of his infantry units in, so that they were within 3 of the Relic. It was right to the very end.
So it was close.
It was right to the end, but then I managed to take out the Predator and then those units, and all the while my one unit of Rangers has been sneaking up the side of a building, so we were able to get within 3 at the end just to be able to hold it. It was a great game, and again, I think it was turn 5 that we got to on that one. And it was a great game. It was really, really good fun. But it was a really, really fun game to finish off. So I did win the primary. I got the Maelstrom as well. I think, did I get the tertiary as well? I can't remember off the top of my head. But I think I got. I didn't table him, but I did. He had just the Dreadnought with not a lot of wounds left. And I think 1 Predator left. I think that was it.
Very nice.
At the end.
But more importantly, you recovered the STC.
I recovered. Yes. Yes, exactly. That fragment of STC that was very, very important.
In the dark age of technology. Okay, so that was day 1. So 2 losses, 1 victory. Let's see how you did in day 2. That's coming up next. So day 2 in the Rock. Who was your 4th opponent?
So I had a guy called Teague with another beautiful Thousand Suns army.
Nick Teague, yeah.
Yeah.
Legend.
With Magnus.
You guys played everyone I played, basically.
Araman, and a beautifully converted Heldrake.
Right.
Yeah, it was.
That's
I've definitely got photos of that, so you're going
Yeah.
to be seeing photos of that, and that's very, very cool.
That's very cool, yeah.
So I got first turn on this one, so it was I managed to get Magnus right down to I think he had 5 wounds left at the end of my first turn, so almost killed him but didn't quite.
Okay.
Annoyingly, Heldrake was on 1 wound because of absolute whiffing on Dune Crawlers.
Oh no! Left the 1 wound!
It's just
damage rolls with Dune Crawlers. That's like a combination of D3 shots and then damage rolls on Dune Crawlers. But that's a time, another story.
Were you about to go on a rant?
No.
Like that was going to be Stig's first rant.
sort of felt
I could feel it. Yeah. That's right. He reined it in though. Chef.
I'm a happy guy. That's another matter. But I was happy with my first turn, but it really did make or break the game to a certain degree,
Right.
because of having those 2 left over. I knew it was going to be a difference, because in all honesty, there wasn't too much more that was a concern in his list. The Leviathan Dreadnought, which was an absolute beast.
Yeah.
His first turn, that Leviathan Dreadnought destroyed 4 punchy bots.
Yeah.
Without taking a wound.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was that was disgusting.
That's extreme.
We both,
Yeah, the sort of the 2 highlights, the last bits I'll say on this game were that Magnus was charging him. He cleared out some screening. He then consolidated into dragoons.
See ya.
So Magnus died.
Yeah.
And then the dragoons moved up, killed the Terminators that he dropped in, so they didn't get to do anything. I then got to move around, arced around, and killed Araman, which slayed the Warlord.
Araman.
So the dragoons again in this game were absolute beasts.
Yeah, they performed well in pretty much all your games.
Yeah, I think dragoons are just absolute beasts.
They're
I think
just
they're really good.
absolutely brilliant.
Also unit.
Yeah, massive units. This game came down to he did win the primary. We drew the Maelstrom, and I think he did take the. It did take the tertiary. It was one of those that at the end of my last turn, which was turn 4, I was winning all 3.
Right.
And then it's his turn.
Yeah.
Gets some decent luck.
Swings it back.
And swings it back. So I felt I'd done everything I could do, but the problem was that first turn.
Yeah.
Leaving that Heldrake on 1 minute. I know it sounds silly, it's only a Heldrake, but it made enough that I had to change what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And Magnus didn't really get to do much, but the psychic powers made a difference.
Yeah.
Because if you'd not had to do any of that, then that would have made a difference. But it was that first turn to a certain degree that
Magnus is a
made
tricky one. I don't even know if I'd run him. 1,000 Suns now.
Nick and I chatted quite a bit afterwards, and we were saying that probably not. That Dreadnought, on the other hand,
The Leviathan.
it was
Taking another Leviathan.
You've just
instead
got
of Magnus.
was brutal.
You just have
Yeah.
bad feelings about Leviathan.
Yeah.
And he
You know what you did, Ian.
the way we kind of chatted afterwards, and I think smarter people than me will tell him differently, but I thought that he dropped Magnus, put another one of the dreadnoughts in, and go more on the Zangors, because he had like a small unit of 10.
Yeah.
I'd have probably had another unit of those, or a bigger unit
Well,
of those.
Zangors suffer from the same thing that cultists do in the moment. I say they suffer as in they're probably the best troops units to take, which means unfortunately you don't really see the Rubricite, which is a real shame.
I mean, he had lots of Rubric Marines, which were great, and
he did,
and everything was painted beautifully. It was really cool. And then my last game was the absolute legend Dave Williamson.
Oh, he's an absolute legend. So we've done a battle report with him here on this channel with his squat army.
No, you heard that right.
Let me see that. The squats. I have been put into the Book of Grudges.
Yeah. I need his army.
Dave
Come to your house, Dave, and steal it. What's happening?
Dave was an absolute legend, a fantastic player.
Very funny guy.
Really, really nice guy to finish my no retreat experience with, and he was using a Dark Angels list, which was, in his words, the leftovers from other projects. Is how he put his list together. Still had some teeth. There was a Land Raider in there. There was a Predator in there. There was a Razorback in there. All sorts of stuff. He had the most amazing objective markers, which were the Fallen. So he had Cypher as an objective marker, and then
cool.
5 other Fallen as the objective markers. So and that was the game. I can't remember what the missions called, but it did mean that I had Cypher sitting in my lines, and he was trying to get to Cypher, which just made it really, really cool.
Yeah.
And it was on a snowy build and all that sort of stuff. And finally, my bases actually made sense. For the first time. So it was a fun game. It was a really interesting game again. And like, he had a lot of things that were deep striking as well. So that was an interesting one from a screening perspective. By this point, Dave was well aware of what Dragoons were going to do, so he was going to absolutely put a lot of firepower into them, and did his best with that. And they did survive a couple of turns, but they did manage to get. They managed to do enough to kill one of his librarians just at the point where I needed that on the Maelstrom. So that was rather. They made their points up for definite, but they did take an awful lot of firepower. They were well and truly being aimed for. Punchy Bots did some work, took out a Razorback in his lines, and did some nasty stuff, and were just sitting around being line breaker and being a pain for the whole game, which was good.
Yeah.
It did come down, he had a kind of final Hail Mary option, but he had a slight miscalculation on command points right at the very end. So he'd thought he had his Hail Mary option, but he needed 3 command points to do the aerial bombardment instead of, and he only had 2 left. So it was
orbital bombardment.
That's it. And it was like, but it would have been his last opportunity to turn the game around.
Did he put you in the Book of Grudges?
No, I didn't go in the grudges, so I was happy about that. I survived coming out of the
Are you in that, Bob?
I believe I am.
But I did manage to take the victory away from that game, and it was a great way to finish my no retreat experience, because it was he's an absolute legend, fantastic guy. So a real relaxed way to finish the game too.
Amazing. So your record in the end was
2 victories. Is it a minor defeat, the one where you've got like one of things, and then 2 tablings. Okay. So I finished 32nd.
Yeah.
Which I had gone, I'd said to both of you guys before, my aim was to come 41st out of 42 players. Yeah. That was my aim.
Just didn't want the wooden
spoon. I just didn't want the wooden spoon. I didn't have any space in my luggage to take it back, so I couldn't come last. So I was really happy with 32nd, in all honesty. I think if I'd had a little bit better luck, either on board or opponent, or more importantly on Teague's game, then I would have moved up quite a lot of places. But I had a great time, and I'm pretty happy the fact that I'd won at least one game. That was all I was saying.
First ever tournament.
Yeah.
Only played AdMech 7 times before.
Yeah.
And pretty much brand new to 8th edition. It's pretty awesome, actually, as a result. And 5 really varied again.
Oh yeah.
Varied games, which is really, really cool. So we've had you 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the end of the video,
that's
right?
It. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I decided to not play.
Yeah. That's great.
How was that?
He's just hanging around like a bad smell.
Yeah,
he does
that was
that.
it, all right, I did play. Yeah. So okay, let's go over what happened to me, what list I bought. That's coming up. Right, so let's kick off with my list. So in this instance, the Spiders Drakari were not present.
No.
Okay, I bought the Craftworld Ulthway, which are very, very close to my heart, because that was the second army that I ever collected, because the first thing I ever collected was Blood Angels, who are still contender for my favourites. And then after, it's the first thing you do when you're a kid, you collect Space Marines, or at least that's what I did.
Yeah, that's what I did. I did Ultramarines.
Did you? Very nice.
I did Orcs.
Did you really?
Yeah.
You played orcs.
I played orcs.
I can't see you playing orcs.
Blood axes and snake bites on
I didn't see
hogs.
that. Do you see that?
No.
Yeah.
That's
I
great.
love blood axes. Blood axes were
Oh,
the
this
thing.
is very cool.
Oh,
They
Orcs.
were orcses. Anyway,
So so the second thing I started collecting and then collected for many, many, many years, and was actually a massive Ulthway specifically player before I even had any Dark Elder models. Granted, the Dark Elder didn't exist at that point, but you know, this is a minor technicality.
they existed in the fluff, did they not?
No, they were Elder Pirates.
That's right.
They were Elder
Yeah.
Corsairs, but they hadn't really fleshed
They
out.
weren't fully Dark Elder.
Dark Elder suddenly became a fleshed out thing when 3rd edition 40k dropped.
Yeah.
And what the time I'm talking about is 2nd edition 40k.
Yeah.
So anyway, I played Ulthway right through to 5th edition. And then obviously by that point I'd forayed into the Dark Elder as well. But they were my main army for many years. And so it's really nice to have an Ulthway army on the channel again. So I've been very, very busy, bought a lovely core of Ulthway models from a boss, John, really, really great painter. And then I painted, well, I think I've painted about 1,500 points in addition to that now. Maybe even 2,000 actually. I think I've added 2,000 points because he had some Guardians done, so I had to paint another 20 in addition to that, and he had all of the Warlocks and Farseer and stuff, and he had 2 Wave Serpents which I haven't ended up using. I've converted one into a Falcon because they were the old Forge World models.
Right.
But anyway, I painted a whole bunch of stuff to go with it, so it was really cool. So I wanted to take them. I also wanted to take something which is going to be a little bit more cutthroat. So I'm going to be upfront about that right now. Okay. I bought a list which I think is pretty strong. I think it's actually very strong.
Did you bring the cheese?
Kind of. The funny thing with my list is that I suppose if you put it in front of most competitive Elder players at the moment, I could be wrong about this, but I think if I put it in front of most competitive Elder players, they'd say it's not very good, or it's not that very good. It's not what you people are expecting to take, which is exactly why I took it, because that's exactly what I like to do. So let's go over the list. Battalion, because that was the mandatory requirement, and I had an air superiority detachment as well, or air wing detachment. So in the battalion, because the Fluff Bunny and me always wins out, I need to take my named characters, even if they're not particularly good, although in this instance it worked well. I took the Autarch Aeon Seul from Ghostmaker. He had a Starglaive, he's just on foot. Starglaive, and then a couple of index options. I took a Shuriken Pistol and I ended up putting a Banshee Mask on him. I then took the Farseer. In this instance, she was not a Farseer. I paid for her as a Spirit Seer with a relic, the Ghost Helm of Ali Shazir. So in this instance, it was the Spirit Seer, Isha Imraya. She's currently a Farseer in Ghostmaker, but I pictured this being, this campaign was fought about 50 years before.
Yeah.
Because she was always the apprentice to Eldrad Ulthran, and in this instance, Eldrad was present in the list. Because competitive Ulthway, Eldrad in general, absolutely amazing. You know, there's no reason to not take him. He's really, really good for his points. Now, Aeon Seul, the Autarch, was the Warlord, so I could benefit from the Path of Command abilities, and I took the, I think it's called the Fate Reader Warlord traits, which basically meant that I could try and farm command points on the rolls of 6s every turn, and when I use stratagems and so forth. So, and it did come up. Which was very useful. So that was the HQ. I then went to troops, and I took 5 units of troops, specifically 4 units of 10 Guardians with Shuriken Catapults. So I'm not saying that the Guardian Blobs aren't good. The Guardian Blobs are very good, and I have used them very effectively. You know, big blobs of 20, and you use the platform trick to start saving wounds and stack it up with Celestial Shield and cast Protect on them. You can start getting really, really nasty. But in this particular instance, this is an alternative way to run them. Okay. Whilst the blobs are very effective, when you've got Ulthway, you can kind of make 2 units of 10 do the same thing as one big blob anyway, and it will work just as well. So I'm spreading my threats again a little bit more, and also not having to rely on spending those command points on dropping the 20 Guardians into place via the webway strikes. I've got 4 units of 10. Then I have 1 unit of 9 Rangers. I specifically had 9. One, because I liked one larger unit, which, I felt would be enough potential mortal wounds on like a cheap character to try and get rid of him, especially if I've doomed that character or whatever. And 2, 9 bodies was just enough to create any sort of drop zone that I needed, just in case I did want to deep strike some things in, which, sometimes I would in this particular style list. So 9 Rangers. And the reason also 9 fitted as well is because it made the list 2,000 points on the nose, which is just like amazing. So that was all the troops. I then had 5 dedicated transports, Wave Serpents.
I don't want to talk to you anymore. 5?
Yeah.
It's too much.
Well, it's very fluffy. For Orthway.
I can't argue with that.
It is fluffy. I take fluffy disgusting. Competitive.
Yeah.
They are very good. They are arguably maybe a little too good for their points. I'd probably go so far as to say they are a little undercosted. The main reason for that is that for their points, which is under 140 points currently.
Just for reference, one of my Dune Cores is 145 points.
Sure. I get a transport capacity. I get 9 shuriken cannon shots because I've gone twin shuriken cannon and underslung shuriken cannon. I've got a serpent shield which reduces the damage of any hit by 1 in the shooting phase. It can also fire that serpent shield once per game, which we do lose the reduced damage by that point. But when you fire that serpent shield, it does D3 mortal wounds on the roll of a 2-up. You have to unleash the shield first. To the closest target. Now, when you've got a move of 16 inches and you're belting around the board, I think it's 16, it's 14 or 16 inches. I'm pretty sure it's 16 actually. When you're belting around the board and you're doing these, potentially free smites. On a 2-up you get a smite, and then there's a stratagem where you can unleash the shield again in the shooting phase. So if you're being clever, what you can do is actually get up to 10 serpent shields, so 10 D3 mortal wounds out of these 5 serpents over the course of 5 turns. Which might not sound like much, because I got a lot of messages. Lawrence, this list's not very good. How do you deal with tanks? I'd love to see you take on a mechanized army. I'd love to see how you deal with this. I had no issues with mech or monsters or anything with that matter in terms of taking them down with this list. If you need to take something down with maneuverability of the wave serpents, the serpent shields, and the good casting of Doom, and then discipline of the Black Guardians on 1 blob of 10 for the +1 to hit, guide on 1 unit of Guardians for the re-rolls to hit, the shuriken weaponry that this army kicks out, and the roll of 6s to wound, don't forget it's -3 rend. I'm taking anything out I want anyway. Okay, just with the shuriken, weight of shuriken fire alone. The mortal wounds is almost a bonus at that point. Okay, but the list isn't done yet. Because what better way to finish it off than with some heavy guns, and some more smite potential. 3 Hemlock Wraith Fighters. 1 +2 +3.
Well, that would be 6.
That would be 6.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, they didn't allow 2 air superiority detachments.
So you just took 3, yeah.
I wouldn't take 6 anyway. But there we go. It is 3 Hemlock Wraith Fighters. Now, again, here go the controversial alarm bells. Oh my goodness, it's an Elder army without Reapers in it, or Shining Spears, and only 1 unit of Rangers. This is the worst list in the world. Well, I don't think so. I happen to rate the Hemlocks extremely highly. Now, I know that's semi-controversial because a lot of folks say, well, actually, I'm not sure that they make their points back. It's only 2 D3 hits, auto hits at strength 12, -4, damage 2, which, I don't know, in my book sounds pretty good to me. But, I get that it's just the 2 guns, but there's the utility in the hands of, I don't want to say a skilled player, but someone that knows what they're doing with them becomes very, very, very dangerous. The big thing that the Hemlocks do, forget the guns, forget the fact that I'm also doing a full damage smite. Okay, these aren't like the normal Warlocks destructible powers, it's a full damage smite, and the sweet spot with all three is about 4 or 5 smites a turn. So this is additional mortal wounds, and that's with the beta rules, because what you do is you go smite from one of the Hemlocks, smite from another Hemlock. I then usually, on the third Hemlock, either cast Jinx, which I used to great effect in this tournament, or I'll cast a third smite, depending. You don't always need Jinx. And then by that point, you're still in the average realm of casting smites. Then you go over to the Spirit Seer with the Ghost Helm of Ali Shazir. She gets a +1 to cast on smite. So then she can do a smite. And it's Spirit Seer, so it's full damage smite. And then Eldrad obviously has his runes. You cast a different power first, then he gets a +1 on his next power, and he can re-roll with the runes. So even despite the fact you're casting on like an 8 at that point, you've still got a fair chance of doing it. So my army's kicking out mortal wounds for days. That's what it does. Okay? Then it's got all of the Rending Shuriken catapults. And the threat is spread across everything. There's nothing in the army which is actually not effective. And in my opinion, that's how you run a tournament army. So I knew that this was nasty. This was pretty nasty, but kind of deceptively so, because I wasn't running 25 Dark Reapers. Okay? Which Dark Reapers are great, but people are getting wise to Dark Reapers, and they suffer from the one and done thing. If you fail with your Dark Reapers, or you're facing an army which is resilient against them, your army's rubbish. They're dead. They'll come out, they do their shooting, and then they're dead. And it's as simple as that. And that's why I don't think it's a crutch that elder players should rely on in general, really. Balanced tournament lists are usually the best ones. Spamming things tends to, apart from in this case Wave Serpents, tends to bite you in the end, because it can't ever be good against everything. So it's good to have a bit of variety in there. But look, there we go. That was the list. Now, the Hemlocks, the powers were pretty critical. Jinx was always on 1, and I'd almost always use a command reroll, save a command reroll in the psychic phase for the casting of Jinx to ensure that it went off. Or it went off as high as possible to prevent denials, because Jinx is really nasty. It's a -1 to your save, and that includes invulnerable save. So, you know, things are really relying on invulnerable saves, and you Jinx it, you know, be it Magnus or be it a Leviathan Dreadnought or whatever, it makes a huge difference. It makes an absolute huge difference. And then we got mortal wounds smashing off of those targets as well. It just becomes really, really nasty, and then you hit them with your D-scythes and... thanks for playing. Yeah. So I bought an nastier list this time, and that I did bring the Void Spiders last time. I wanted to bring them again because obviously people know me as a Drakari player. But at this point, you know, I'd done the Index army last time, and I lost in the finals to Chris Tuttle, who's a great player, and I lost to the Big Bird. And I knew Chris was coming back to defend his title, and I assumed that he was also going to bring the pain. So I brought the pain. So I was like, okay, cool. Let's try and let's see if we can face each other on the battlefield again, you know, and then we'll have a great game. So I bought a Codex army, I bought all three. So that was the list. You've got some ideas on how it works. Now I'll tell you how I applied those techniques in the games. That's coming up next. Right, so sorry, it was tea time there.
A little tea, just a little pep.
And as I went off on my Elder Tactics diatribe there, I also forgot to finish off the sentence I was talking about, the Hemlocks. The reason I rate them so highly is that -2 leadership bubble that they give off. And one of my Hemlocks always has the Horrify power as well, so you can put an additional -1. And what you can do is by spreading the casualties across, you know, depending on the type of army you're playing. But I've removed Obliterators doing this. I'll just kill 2 Obliterators from that unit. I'll kill 2 Obliterators from that unit. You know, I'll kill 2 Obliterators from that unit. I did this at the LVO with the Hemlocks, you know, with a combination of Shuriken Fire and so forth. And then they start failing morale. That's a real problem. Yeah. You know, and they just remove models that way. So you're getting a lot. You can bring up the kill rate of the Hemlocks dramatically using those tactics, forcing the morale issues at the end of that phase, at the end of the turn. So that's what I did in this tournament. So let's go over the games. So I played 5 epic games. The tournament didn't quite go how I expected it to, funnily enough. It was a really interesting no retreats. Lots of different interesting armies. And I should also preface this by saying, guys, no retreat is not a hardcore competitive event. It never has been. It's an invitational tournament, and by invitational you have to apply, and to get in there's a number of factors, namely painting. Do you have a painted army? Does it look nice? You don't have to be a hardcore gamer or tournament competitor to be in it. So what you do get, although they do attract them, like Chris Tuttle is a very, very good player. He often finishes in the top 5 of tournaments that he goes to in the past. And then we had Toby Meadows here this time. He's another good player. Mark Crumbleholm, another good player. These are Dave Williamson, when he's not playing fluffy, he's actually a very good player as well. He often goes to the Caledonia Uprising tournament
There's
as well.
me, obviously, as well.
That's right, yeah. We're very, very big on this.
Big heavy hitter over here.
And then there's me, who just gets lucky and rolls 6s. So let's go over the games. So you get a mix of people, right? So you're going to get really good players. You're going to get, just hobbyists, painters, a whole mix. The first game in the wonderful Rock of Gibraltar, and again, this is a good example for no retreat. I'm playing Maxwell Koch. Now, young Maxwell,
yes.
Love him dearly. Mm-hmm. This will be the 3rd time I've played him. First time he used Elder. Second time he used Ynnari Harlequins. And this 3rd time he used Ynnari, but no Harlequins this time. Now, Maxwell is a fantastic player, okay? He won the Warhammer Fest, Warhammer 40,000 tournament last year at last year's Warhammer Fest. He's also a regular tournament goer and regularly does, rather well. So we're not dealing with someone who doesn't know how to use his army here. You're dealing with a good player. He had an interesting list. Now, at No Retreat, we should also clarify that due to the army building rules, if you're interested in learning more about that, you should go to over to snbattlereports.com, look at the No Retreat event packs. But to cut a long story short, you had to keep the same sub-faction keyword for the majority of the part. There are some exceptions where Chaos could go with demons, etc. But in this instance, if you're running Ynnari, both of your detachments, and you're only allowed a maximum of 2, one of which has to be a battalion, have to have the same sub-faction keyword. So what does that mean is they both had to be Ynnari detachments. That means that none of them were Craftworld detachments. That means he didn't have any Craftworld stratagems. Okay, that's huge for Ynnari, because actually when you take that away from them, which, I mean, as of filming this, the chapter approved, not chapter approved, the errata may be out, and they may actually change that, because it's one of the rumours that they may actually look at addressing Ynnari that way. But if you remove access to the Craftworld stratagems from Ynnari, they're still going to be very good, because the rule Soul Burst is quite, by definition, breaks the rules of the game. Yeah. It's an out of sequence turn, which is, it's still going to be really good, guys. But to take away the Craftworld stratagems will curb a lot of the real abusive power, like 9 Shining Spears that can suddenly deep strike in, but they're also Ynnari, and then they get Soul Burst on them, blah, blah, blah. Okay? So, right. Maxwell. Now, he's got a single Hemlock. He's got, I believe, and Maxwell, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it was 20 Dark Reapers in total, because I think he had 3 units of 3 and he had 1 unit of 9, so it would have actually been 18 Dark Reapers. Did he have 4 units of 3?
I think he had the 4 units.
Yeah, it might have been 4 units of 3. He had 1 big unit as well.
Yeah, he definitely had 1 unit,
because that's what he did. Word of the Phoenix on, shoot twice, classic stuff. So this was, in essence, your more traditionally competitive 8th edition Elder list with the Ynnari twist. He then had a bunch of Guardians, some Guardian blobs, very nice. He had a Warlock Conclave. This was kind of the weaker choice, really, if you like, in the list, because again, he's not getting the Craftworld stratagems, so he can't protect them by deep striking in or whatever. But, he did have max numbers, so he had like 9, I think, so they were doing D6 mortal wounds on this might. because if you're over 10 models, Smite does D6 mortal, which is nice. And it's a good effective unit. They all had singing spears. It's just there's probably some more points efficient things to take, but that's what he ran. He really needed first turn against me, and that's exactly what he got. He got first turn because we both sort of spoke about the game before we started. It's like, whoever gets first turn will probably have a good drop on the opponent. The board we are playing on, you'll see images come up here, did afford some decent line of sight blocking things for me. I did put my Hemlocks into reserve, as I recall. Pretty sure I did. Let's see if I've filmed my deployment here. Yes, I have. I put them in reserve because I knew that I could deep strike them in. Why not? It was effective. And that way he couldn't alpha strike those Hemlocks before they got to do anything. Now, as it turned out, he opened up. He did as well over Phoenix. He didn't get line of sight with all of his Reapers that he would want to. And this is the great thing about the Wave Serpents. Granted, he's ignoring any minuses to hit, so I couldn't use lightning reflexes or anything. But actually, when it came down to it, he wasn't doing a tremendous amount of damage. In his first turn, I think he destroyed one Wave Serpent, as I recall, and he did. He's got shining. No, did he have shining spears? No, it was with his Warlock Conclave that he moved in. He nearly got into charge range because he did cast Quickening on the Warlock Conclave to move them twice. So he nearly got into charge range with one of the Guardians units that got out of the Wave Serpent. But to cut a long story short, he kind of just had like a bit of a meh turn. I then came in and proceeded to I just obliterated the Dark Reapers. And this is what I was sort of saying to you guys. If you've got anything which is remotely resilient, all of my troops and seers and everything are all nice and protected in their Wave Serpent hulls. He tried to do the best damage he could. Half damage one Wave Serpent, destroyed one. Fantastic. My turn, 3 Hemlocks come in. I destroy his Hemlock. I start popping Wave Serpent shields. I use all of the Shuriken cannons in my incredibly maneuverable Wave Serpents to deal with those Reapers. And at that point, it was game, set, and match. My turn 1 was so decisive that he had very little to retaliate with. And it was through no fault of his own. My list on paper basically sort of beat him. And this is the thing, I didn't really need to go first because I knew that if I didn't go first, I'd protect my Hemlocks, which I wanted to keep alive, by just putting him into reserve, and that's what I did. So, that was that. So I think we went to turn 3 before he conceded, and he had a smattering of models left, like almost nothing. It would have been a tabling. There was no point continuing. But, Maxwell, as ever, it's just awesome to play. He's so wonderfully polite and everything.
He's a nice guy.
Yeah, he is. He's a complete
gentleman.
And we talk and about the tactics and every single move, and we're both very cerebral players, so we get on in that respect as well. So it was a good game, but ultimately I think my list just had the edge on his. So that was game 1. We then went on to game 2. Let me flick through here. Game 2. This was Mr. Nick Teague, the boss. So there we go. I drew him. He had come off of a big victory as well. I don't know who played in his first game, but
I can't remember. He did tell me, but I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't know who he played, but we sort of already spoken about his list now. But basically, he had Magnus. That's fine. He had this Leviathan. He had some Rubricae. He had I'm not going to call it a Zangor bomb because it was only like 10 or 12 Zangors, where really you want 30. But he did have that element in there.
He had that amazing. What's it called? The little Chaos Spawn model.
That's right. Yeah.
That's right. I've got a photo of this. It's beautiful. It's coming out of a little space wolf, so it's like it's ripping it. It's a beautiful model. Sorry.
He hid that in the corner all game. Yeah. I didn't even get to look at it. He didn't do anything. He seized
model, but
I think he seized the initiative on me, if I remember correctly. He seized. Stealing's bad. Stealing's bad, except in this instance.
Yeah.
So he went first.
Helps you win.
Yes.
Then steal everything,
now,
kids.
Here's the thing. I left my Hemlocks on the board. I left my Hemlocks on the board because he had. I don't think he had enough firepower to really threaten them. So I wasn't going to spend the command points. But he did move in with Magnus, and I backlined everything anyway because I was aware that Magnus might be warp time and try and charge me and be all nasty first turn. And I never assume I'm going first. I actually always deploy for the worst outcome, so that I don't get to do what I want. And so as it turns out, he didn't make it into combat with Magnus, which is absolutely what he would try to do. His Helldrake did come along, and I think he actually did destroy one Hemlock through a combination of some firepower from the Leviathan, a Magnus Smite, actually, the Magnus Smite, I think he destroyed one Wave Serpent as well. So look, he had an okay first turn. He did all right. He destroyed a Hemlock, he destroyed a Serpent. That's not bad going. Then my turn came, and this is where I start doing the real psychic shenanigan nastiness. I save my command point. I start casting a whole bunch of powers, smites, forcing him to use his denials. And I save Jinx for last. I've already got a command point saved. I Jinx Magnus. He's now got a -1 to his invulnerable save. That's not a good look. He gets de-scythed real bad. And then he gets guardianed real bad. Because I also doomed him with Eldrad and used Runes of Witnessing to ensure that I got a really high number, so he didn't deny that either.
It's the psychic powers for Eldrad.
The synergy makes it brutal. So Magnus was gone.
Yeah.
He was gone.
It's just because if you're a good player, they're really super strong, but you need to know how to use it. I think that's the thing.
You need to abuse the synergy, but I mean that's the play, right? You know, that's what you got to do. So Magnus was dead, okay, and his Helldrake was also. Funnily enough, I got him down to like 2 runes. He survived as well.
Really?
See, it's not just me. I feel slightly better.
He did survive, so you got one more turn out of him, but. To cut a long story short, Magnus was dead. The Leviathan was still running up the board, ultimately out of position for the next turn. He played his second turn, tried to do some return fire as best he could, but I've already taken out this big alpha unit, which is Magnus, and his Leviathan, the other alpha unit, isn't close enough yet to do the serious damage. I then, by my turn to destroy the Leviathan, guess what I did again, especially after Magnus has gone and he lost a lot of his denial potential, I jinxed it. You won't be having that invulnerable save at the 5 up in range. You'll be having that as a 6 up. And then he got de-scythed, and then he got shuriken cannoned, and I popped a couple of Wave Serpent shields. Good night. God bless.
That is it.
That's it. And by this point, you know, he's got some Rubrikai that are running rounds out of their Rhinos transports to try and get objectives, but these are like now starting to get shurikens. And again, the Rubrikai getting the awesome 2-up save against damage 1 weaponry, but when I'm rolling 6s to wounds and suddenly -3 rend, all of a sudden they're having to resort to a far worse save. And, you know, they're starting to drop. And by turn 3, again, I'm sure Nick will correct me if I'm wrong, by turn 3 it was a concession, that was it. I didn't go beyond 3 turns. There wasn't really much on paper that he could have done differently. He got the first turn, which is what he wanted and needed, really. He did as much damage as he could, but he could not face that sort of raw power from the forces of Ulthwé. It just couldn't happen. So that was game 2. Okay, game 3 was absolutely awesome in many respects. I played this man before, so I faced Tristan. Now Tristan is a good player. He's a good player. So we know the Black Legion list: 3 units of a Blitz, 5 units of Chaos Marines with las cannons, 3 Hellbrutes with twin las cannons, a Baron and a Spoiler. Now again, I think if he had gone first, he didn't in this instance, by the way, guys. I think if he had gone first, it would have been a lot more interesting, because actually he'd be kicking out, what, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 las cannon shots plus 3 units for Blitz. And he could have, I would have obviously, again, just reserved my Hemlocks. But ultimately, yeah, I don't know. It would have been interesting. I don't know if he could. How many Wave Serpents could he have destroyed? I don't know. I obviously would have done Lightning Reflexes on 1 to give a -1 to hit, and tried to be all tricksy and all that sort of jazz. But ultimately, it would have been much more interesting. As it turned out, I went first, and all 3 Hellbrutes were dead turn 1. okay? And then 2 units of Chaos. I actually got nearly 3 units of Chaos Space Marines using my Hemlock shenanigans. So I was like, Shuriken Cannons into this unit, killed 2 or 3. Shuriken Cannons into that unit, killed 2 or 3. Shuriken Cannons into that one, killed 2 or 3. Morale. At -2. Ouch. You know, so they're running away, everything's going wrong. So by the end of turn 1, my turn 1, he's there with a smattering of models, and it's not a good look. You know, it's just not a good look. But he had the time to retaliate. So turn 2, Abaddon comes in, and this is unfortunately where the Lawrence Luck Vortex comes into play.
Yes, we've seen it before.
Yeah, despite his re-rolls, he just whiffed really bad. He's rolling really poor damage results or poor strength, failing to really do much. I mean, this is the thing. This is the other thing, guys. Like, a Blitz aren't that great against Wave Serpents because you think about their average damage being 2, it suddenly only becomes 1 against them. You know, their average strength is 8. Okay, so you are wounding on 3s at least. But if you only get the 1 or 2 on that strength, then all of a sudden you're wounding on 4s. It's just... they're not that great against them, you know. They especially Wave Serpents en masse.
Yeah.
So then by the next turn, the Hemlocks hunted the Obliterators. The Shuriken weaponry went after the rest of the Chaos Space Marines, and this was the relic, by the way, on turn 3, or game 3, and it got worse as well because I had first turn. The Rangers deployed on the relic, so my first turn was move away into my deployment zone. And in my second turn, I was behind this massive line of sight blocking terrain, and I'd completely castle screened, got all of my Guardians out by this point. The Obliterators could only deep strike really into the mid-board, so in terms of movement, it would have taken him at least 2-3 turns to even get to the relic. So he needed the game to go on to turn 5. He would need to move directly through my forces. It was game the minute I actually went first, to be honest, guys. There was no real tactical play required. It was a really vicious list. I had the perfect storm. I went first, had the relic. It wasn't going to go any other way.
See, I knew this one wasn't going well because I was on my turn 3, and all of a sudden Tristan walked into the room to say hello and see how I was getting on. And I thought, okay, that's not good.
No.
That's not good.
No.
Yeah, but that was during my intense game.
Yes,
that's right.
What are you doing? I said, you go away now, please. I'm focusing on this.
Talk to me.
Can't talk to you right now. Stresses me out. That's what he does.
So that was it. That was day 1, guys. You know, 3 different armies, which is really cool. And funnily enough, like Maxwell, like we've played in like the semi-final, quarter-final, a couple of different no retreats now. So it was almost like playing a final game, the final match, you know, match up in the first game. Yeah. So it's like a tough match up first game. And then Nick Teague, his list, you know, is great and basically fluffy. But my list was really powerful and wasn't, you know, he didn't have much of a chance mathematically just because of the strength of my list. And then likewise, perfect storm against Tristan, who actually does have a deceptively good list, but I went first. He didn't quite have the luck he needed. Yeah, and then it became sort of a non-game. So he also conceded in turn 3. And we enjoyed a very ice-cold beer, which was awesome. So that was day 1. Let's do day 2. That's coming up next. So day 2, and now the power levels are ascending, and we're starting to play some stronger lists again. So I've got Eldar and I've got Rostislav, who is very experienced player, a long-time veteran of Eldar. So I guess
probably been playing them as long as you have, if not longer.
Yeah, like me, he knows exactly what he's doing with them. He knows how to get the synergy out of the units. But again, and I'm going to say this, you know, he's a great player, but he brought a relatively fluffy list to this event, guys, okay? The Samhain jet bikes were great because he's running Samhain, and actually they could be utilised. But he also had like 2 units of Dire Avengers on foot. He had 1 unit of Dark Reapers, like only 6 man with the Exarch, in a Wave Serpent, which is good. So that was 1 alpha unit, and then he had an alpha unit of 6 Shining Spears, which is also good. You know, and he had the psychic powers to, you know, to cast Quicken on them and protect, so they could move twice, and you know, he had all of the ingredients to play a good game against any sort of list, if you like. But against the raw power of my elder list, he needed first turn. He didn't get first turn. Okay, so that's what happened. I then went, okay, great. Hemlocks over to his Shining Spears, which he had deployed very well. But this is, again, with a Hemlock, can't really hide when I'm rocking a 60-inch move. You can't really hide. And then the Wings of Cain, I'll just do a free turn to ensure I stay on the board next turn as well. It's really nasty. The Hemlocks are really, really good. I do not know why anyone would say they're not good. I just think they're amazing. The only sad thing about them is they don't really benefit from the Orthway trait, because they've got Spirit Stones anyway. But there you go, what are you going to do? So 3 Hemlocks go over after the Shining Spears. I was like, right, don't really want them in my life. I ignored his Wave Serpent because I didn't have the firepower to bring it down when I spent my my Hemlocks over to his right flank, and he had screened the Wave Serpent well, so that he knew that my Wave Serpents wouldn't be able to shield his Wave Serpent out. So again, you know, he deployed well, he knew what he was doing. He's a good player. But he couldn't hide from the Hemlocks. I went over to the Shining Spears, and of course he's got his Farseer in the middle of the board. I put one Hemlock right in the far corner, turn it round. And why do I put it in the far corner? Well, that was to ensure that he wasn't within denial range, so he couldn't even attempt to deny. And then I saved my command point and I jinxed his Shining Spears, so all of a sudden he's only got a 5-up invuln. The Hemlocks opened up with 6 D-scythes, smites. The Shining Spears were gone, guys. That was it.
I wish I had that against those Shining Spears. The amount of 3-up saves that he made against me was, I just remember like sitting there going, okay, so, but yeah.
Yeah, no, you had to give it to them, because they would have hunted my Hemlocks. Granted, they would have had to have charged into the auto-hitting D-scythes, but by that point he should have cast Protect. And, you know, they would have had that 3-up invuln, which is, you know, not good. So, look, they were gone. And then I obliterated as many of the jet bikes as I could. Because, again, I didn't want that rate of fire anywhere near me. And I just got rid of them. I didn't have time for that. So that was that. He then retaliated in his next turn. The Reapers got out. They did end up blowing up one of the Hemlocks. And to be fair, and I don't know if you even mentioned this in his list, he's got 3, and he deep struck these guys, so I couldn't target them turn 1. So again, that was a good play. But he's got 3 Crimson Hunters.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so you know his list has got some teeth.
Yeah.
Now the Crimson Hunters aren't what they used to be, and they're not as good as Hemlocks, but they are good at dealing with other flyers. And so his Crimson Hunters come in, but the problem is, as I recall, they don't ignore the -1 to hit on their weapons. He didn't have the Exarchs, he wasn't hitting on 2s naturally anyway. And what I did is, through some shenanigans, he did manage to destroy one of the Hemlocks in turn 1 through Crimson Hunter fire and Reapers, and he also destroyed a Wave Serpent as well. I forget how he allocated that fire, but basically he destroyed a Crimson Hunter, a Hemlock of mine, and a Wave Serpent. But I put lightning reflexes on the Hemlock. So all of a sudden he's got that -2 to hit, because his Crimson Hunters have got the -1 for moving and shooting, and then I think that was how it worked. Or maybe it was just the -1 if they ignore it. But either way, he was rolling 1s and 2s, and 1s, 2s and 3s, and he was failing to hit me. And they don't actually have a tremendously high rate of fire, the Crimson Hunter. So the few shots that he did get through did do damage, sure, but he didn't have enough to deal with 3 Hemlocks. So he destroyed one Wave Serpent. My next turn, through a combination of Smite, Serpent Shields, I destroyed 2 of his flyers. 1 definitely survived to the end of the game. And then by that point, I killed his Dark Reapers. I pretty much ignored his Wave Serpent. We did play the game out, and I think we went to turn 4 or 5 before the time finally, I think we got 5 turns actually, before the time gave out. He had quite literally at this point 1 Crimson Hunter left on like 3 or 4 wounds, and I think I'd even destroyed the Wave Serpent at that point. I don't think he had anything left. There was basically nothing left, and I had 3 Wave Serpents, about 30 Guardians. The Rangers were all alive. Yeah, it was brutal. It was brutal.
Yeah, that's solid.
Yeah. So that was game 4. You know, Rostislav, awesome playing him, great player, but again, this is just an example, guys. He didn't get first turn, he needed it, and my list was stronger. You know, again, I just had a mathematical advantage. Then it was game 5. Game 5 was interesting because we ended up drawing each other, but it became a bit of a surprise because at the time I played Mikey from Hellstorm Gaming. He's a great guy. He won. He seized the initiative on him. You know?
I like Mikey a lot.
Yeah,
we're good friends, but I mean, if you're going to go ahead and say he's a great guy, I think that's a bit
Take
much.
that back.
Yeah.
So we didn't think we'd draw each other because he hadn't won all of his games. He had won 3 games max points. By this point, I'm on 4 victories max points, and he'd had a dead draw. But Toby Meadows, the boss, representing the Grey Knights, you know, which is just epic in my opinion. It's a testament to his playing ability. He had won 4 games, and he had just beaten, whilst I was playing Rosterslav, he had beaten Chris Tuttle, and I thought I'd face Chris Tuttle, the winner of No Retreat 5. So he beat Chris Tuttle, and this is no less against Chris, who's a great player and has got that demon stratagem, which is just made to ruin Grey Knight lives. Okay, and Grey Knight lives matter, by the way. Okay,
It's very true.
where they can just bring a unit that was destroyed back, but only against Grey Knights.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you know. And so apparently Chris employed that stratagem 3 times. So he brought 3 units back, and Toby still won.
Just shows how good a player Toby is, because he's a really good player.
Yeah.
And, you know, that list was not the be all and end all.
No. But there you go. Look, so he did really well, but he's sitting on 4 victories at this point. So I thought, right, it's Toby and I in the final. Awesome. You know, that's what it is. Except all of his victories, because he's Grey Knights and it's relatively, you know, an elite army, you know, even though he's running the correct way to run Grey Knights at the moment, just Power Armor Marines, not running Indeterminators. Drago, a couple of Grandmaster Dread Knights. I know there's going to be lots of comments. What did he run? What did he run? That was the core of the list, and about 20 Interceptors, and 15, 20
Stormraven?
Strike. Yeah, he's in Stormraven as well. Strike Marines. So, you know, good list. The best way to run Grey Knights at the moment. Please, Games Workshop, help them out. They do need it. But look, there we go. He played well. He delivered. He's beaten Chris. I thought, great, we're facing each other in the final. Except because all 4 of his games, they're victories, no less, but they're just victories. He's just getting the points, you know, to win. He's not getting massive victories where the maximum points you can get at No Retreat is 28. So I was getting like 28 points to 0, 28 points to 0. So the maximum victories you could get. So it put me right at the top. And actually, Mikey from Hellstorm had more points than he did. So as a result, he faced me in the final. So it's quite interesting, this No Retreat, because it meant that if I lost and Toby won, he could still win it. Even though if Mikey beat me, Toby could still win it. So but basically between the 3 of us, depending on what points others got in their missions, would depend on who won.
And I think Mikey had won 3 games and drawn 1, but
That's
had
it.
taken the more points.
Exactly, yeah. He'd done 3 maximum victories and 1 draw. So so it was up for grabs by, you know, any of us, really. So Toby did go on to win his 5th game. I can tell you that right now. So he was in the running. You know, he's won all 5 games, and it's the first time it's ever happened actually at No Retreat where someone that's won all 5 games didn't actually win the event. I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm wrong if that's not the case, but I'm pretty sure it's the first time. And ultimately, at this point, Mikey needed to smash me completely and take all of the points to ensure that either he had a chance of winning it or Toby had a chance. He couldn't afford to just beat me because at that point I could still win it. So
Yeah, it was interesting.
it was a funny one how it worked out.
It was interesting because you guys were playing on the table just in front of me.
Yeah.
So I could just see the kind of reactions going on throughout. And Mikey said this, so I'm not talking out of turn, but he looked very nervous at the start of this game. And he looked very nervous. He has said that. I'm not speaking out of turn.
Fair enough. Well, I mean, look, I understand that. And that's mainly because... you know, again, he's got a strong list. He's running Ultramarines, but they're Blood Ravens, right? So he's got Gabriel Angelos, So he's got the chapter master there for the reroll hits. He's got lieutenants for reroll ones. And this is a marine castle with the Leviathan dreadnoughts, Stormhawk interceptor. He also had a redemptor with all of the Gatling, so all of the shots in the world ever. A load of Hellblasters, which is great. The banner, an apothecary, good Space
Scouts.
Marine castle, and then scouts, which he deployed perfectly. He's a good player, Mikey. He's a good player. He deployed perfectly in the centre of the boards in an arc to ensure screen outs, so that if I had to deep strike in with my hemlocks, that I would be out of range with the D sides. That's a clever move, and basically a mistake that lesser experienced players would often make. They wouldn't even think about that. So right, he needed first turn again to have a chance, because despite the how good his list was, mathematically I think my list still had an advantage. He said that before the game. I said that. Pretty much everyone said that. I bought a really strong list, guys. So he won the roll-off. Now, I finished deploying first. He won the roll-off, despite me having the +1. So I had to seize. So I told him I'm going to seize, and I did.
Stealing Clone.
6. I was all right, so I'm going to have to seize then. Sorry. 6. Bam. That was it. And if you could see the hope die. He was like, flip. He was like, yeah, it was brilliant. Actually, went very good.
See, that's vengeance.
Yes,
you avenged me. Yeah.
So it was Team TT.
Yeah,
Team
exactly.
Arsenal. So I had to bring the pain. So anyway, what happens? Look, I didn't actually have, funnily enough, despite that, I didn't actually have the strongest turn. I did enough to ensure that it stung him. Like, I destroyed his Stormhawk, get rid of that. I want to keep my hemlocks alive as much as possible. And I did do the trick. I did jinx his... no, I didn't touch his Leviathan, as I recall. I can't remember. Mikey will have to tell me. I did one of two things. No, this is what I did, in fact. I did jinx the Leviathan first turn. I get there eventually. I did jinx the Leviathan first turn, and I did do a lot of damage on it. And then what I did is I put all of the Shuriken Cannon fire into his Hellblasters. That's how I played it. So I put all of the Wave Serpent fire that I could into the Hellblasters to kill as many of them as possible. And I did end up killing 4, maybe 5. Like, effectively destroyed 1 unit, as I recall. So he had 1 unit left. But I didn't quite destroy the Leviathan, despite the fact he only had the 6-up invuln saves. Between the 4 D-sides that I had, because I sent one of the Hemlocks after the Stormhawk, smiting it and then D-siding it, etc. I didn't quite have enough to destroy it. So he's left there on like 3 wounds, 4 wounds. So he's badly degraded, but he's still alive. Yeah, he's still alive, yeah. And I think statistically I worked out that I should have destroyed it, because I'd had some additional smites and so forth go off, but it didn't quite work out. So he was able to retaliate, and then the next turn he did pop 1 Hemlock, as I recall, and he did start to damage one of the Wave Serpents, but that was really it. And then in my next turn, of course, I finished off the Leviathan. I finished off all of the Hellblasters. And he's got Razorbacks, 2 Twin Assault Cannon Razorbacks in this list as well. And by that point, when I've removed his Stormhawk, I've removed all of his Hellblasters, and I've removed his Leviathan, and then started damaging the Redemptor, by this point, he started to lose the real core of his army, and really any effective teeth at actually hurting the Wave Serpents at all. So by turn 4, which is where the game ended, as I recall, or did we get to turn 5? It was turn 4, turn 5. The Redemptor was dead, and it was a rush, really. He was sitting on his home objective. My home objective, I was sitting on all game. There was absolutely no chance of him threatening it. So I'd already got the primary, in terms of, I'd already drawn the primary, pretty much guaranteed from the beginning. And Maelstrom cards, I just swept up. From the first 2 turns, I'd already had a dominating Maelstrom lead. By turn 3, there was actually almost no point in him drawing the cards. He did, but I'd had such a lead. He'd already lost the Maelstrom. So by this point, he's basically out of the running of winning the tournament. It is between me and Toby, but it's down to how many points can he take from me to potentially get Toby to win it. So it was almost like a sabotage. Because if we'd drawn maybe on the primary, I think that still would have been enough, because I would have had 28, 28, 28, and then like a 20-point win.
Yeah.
But, you know, if I potentially, and he could have maybe drawn at one point on the tertiary as well, because he could have got line breaker, I had line breaker, because I never killed Gabriel Angelos. He never killed my warlord either. But I did have first blood. Oh no, I think I always had the tertiary anyway. But to cut a long story short,
Too late.
yeah. It ended, I just rushed all of the Wave Serpents in, and I put a unit of Guardians in one of the Wave Serpents. I charged Gabriel Angelos, because he was castled all around his objective, so I charged Gabriel Angelos with the Serpent with the Guardians in it, knowing that statistically he was going to destroy it. So this was like a deliberate tactic. And he destroyed it, and I was like, great, 10 objectives secured, Guardians now sitting around your objective, you've got no obsec left.
That's cheeky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then
move.
that dominated the Eternal War as well. So then I got max points, basically, to cut a long story short. And that meant that I got, ta-da!
Hey!
So I won it. Crazy. So that is, it's getting silly now, isn't it? So I'll never be invited back again to No Retreat. So that's given me that's my 4th title at No Retreat, which is insane. It was an amazing event. It was great fun. All of my games were great fun, mainly because the people were awesome, and the atmosphere is always really good. But yeah, that was it, guys. You know, so that was another No Retreat. Hopefully I'll be returning to No Retreat 7 to defend my title. I believe applications
They're live
are actually
right now.
live right now if you're interested in going. But yeah, any final thoughts, guys?
No, I think we've covered it all. It's just really good fun if you guys are thinking about going to a tournament.
Yeah.
If you've never been to a tournament, actually,
best
I
introduction.
would think it's the best introduction that you can do to one.
It's the one that I waited and held out to be my first tournament. I said this before to you guys off camera. You know, it was something that I was, wanting to have my first tournament experience. I wanted it to be SA, and I'm really glad I did. Every single person I met was incredible, so helpful as well. When I was losing to people like Tristan, what have you, I was just asking them afterwards, what would you have done differently, and just they were open to sharing their thoughts and ideas, and it was so really just a great experience, the whole thing. So thank you to everybody that we got to meet over there.
Awesome. Well, guys, hope you've enjoyed this tournament Voxcast. It'll be a long one, this one, but hopefully some tactical insights into the different factions that we played, and an insight into the No Retreat event also. So this has been The Bone,
It has.
The Stig, and The Spider. We'll see you soon.